international webinar on Jugaad, Technology and Human Explorations in Sociology of Technology in Indian Context. I welcome today's resource person, Dr. Basilio G Monteiro, Associate Professor, St. John's University, New York. A warm welcome to you, sir.
My pleasure.
I welcome our principal, Reverend Dr. Baiju Anthony CM. Welcome, Father. I welcome our campus superior and financial administrator, Reverend Father Santoy Kurian CM. Welcome, Father. I extend a warm welcome to our vice principal, Reverend Father Esteban Thomas CM. Welcome, Father. I welcome IQAC coordinator, Assistant Professor Joshi PG. Welcome, sir. I welcome the HOD of Arts Department, Grishma Joseph. Welcome, ma'am. Now, I request Chitranjita of First BA to introduce today's resource person, Dr. Basilio G Monteiro.
Good morning, everyone. I take immense pleasure introducing the resource person of the day. He joined us in the last section to talk about the political economy of Indian language and communication convention. Dr. Basilio G Monteiro is an associate professor in the Department of Mass Communication and director of the graduate program International Communication at St. John's University, New York. His specialization is in the area of international communication and teaches communication and global development, media and public policy, media and the politics of peace building, media and human rights, media and public diplomacy, ethics and digital ecology, among other related subjects. This area of research, besides its academic area, covers ICT and the internationalization of human rights, education and social justice, social media and conflict zones, media and sustainable development goals, communication and theology, education in globalized economy, the role of humanities in information or knowledge economy. These areas of particular research interest are international communication and development, media and public policy, theology of communication. Some of the courses taught him are Introduction to Mass Communication, Business of Radio, Legal Aspects of Communications Arts, Political Communication, and many others. You have come a long way for growing up in Goa to being the Associate Professor at St. John's University, New York. You are truly a great source of inspiration for us, sir. So we are filled with pride to have you back, sir. On behalf of the college, we welcome this great scholar, Dr. Basilio G Monteiro, to speak about Jugaad, technology, and the human exploration and sociology of technology in Indian context. Thank you.
Thank you, Chitranjita. Now, I request Dr. Basilio G Monteiro to kindly start the session.
Oh, thank you for the invitations I have. It's wonderful to meet with you again. And okay. So the focus I'm going to have today is on, you all are familiar with the term Jugaad. And are you familiar with the term Jugaad? Let me briefly, this is a very interesting Indian concept of that is how we tend to understand. But anyway, I'll come back to that afterwards. And what I want to do today is kind of focus on how technology has shaped our lives and what technology tends to do for us, in terms of our life gets organized by technology. Something, the term that is want to use here is technological determinism. Technology determines how our life gets organized, the organizing principle of that. Now here in this particular picture that I put here is, intentionally put this picture is, the evolution of the human beings have taken place and technology has played a role to the point where now this is where we tend to see it. So now the question that I want to start by asking, what is technology? This is my personal definition. Technology is understood as anything that facilitates human activity. You know very well that they want to make fire. They took two stones, they rubbed against the two stones rubbed against each other, and then there were sparks coming along, and as a result, fire was created. So, and that fire has helped to kind of change people's lives, what they could eat, food, what kind of food they could eat, how they're going to organize their life. So the fire became a vehicle through which they could organize their lives. So you can see that taking place. So now, just looking at the word etymology, when this word etymology, I don't know where this is coming from, all this stuff here, different colors. You see those little red, green lines? I don't know what is the source of it. So the word technology, for example, comes from the two Greek words, techne and logos. Now, what is techne? Techne means art, skill, craft of the way, the manner of which things are, are done. So it's not, when we use the word technology today, we tend to think of the word as if like something very sophisticated, something that is very, very, lot of lights are flashing, very, kind of complex, complicated thing. We think of technology in that sense. And so now what we are finding is that is not technology. I want to take you back to the original thing, definition I gave. Anything that facilitates human activity. Stones is a technology. When the hunters and gatherers, instead of killing an animal by hand, now you're using a bow and arrow from a distance. That is, the bow and arrow becomes a technology because now it facilitates, instead of having 10 people, 10 men to hold one particular, animal that they want to eat for their meal, now they can do 1 or 2 people from a distance without jeopardizing their lives. So that's why I said technology definition is whatever facilitates human activity that we tend to do. So if you look at the word, now I want to focus on the idea that productive science, technology is about something that is productive, something that is being done, so just to hear technology comes from, okay, so keep that in mind. Techne, which means craft and art, and logia simply means a systematic treatment. It's kind of studying, understanding that. So you're studying, that's where the word technology comes from. In fact, the word in Greek was first used by Aristotle, the Greek philosopher, about 300 years before AD, AC, before Christ. So, but in English was used only in the 17th century. So around 1600, that word was used in English, technology. Now, I just want to kind of, given that introduction in terms of the etymology of the word, there has been a lot of attention paid in the last 15, 20 years to Indian way of doing technology or innovation, improvisation in the villages. And that's the term, in Indian term that we used is Jugaad. In fact, there was a conference at Oxford University a few years ago. You can find that the proceedings of the conference from the Oxford University about Jugaad in India. And it was a very interesting conference. Later on, there was another conference held at Harvard University about Jugaad, what it means. And it was, people are beginning to pay attention. The economists and particularly the business-minded people, engineers are paying attention to the Indian Jugaad. Now, what is special about Indian Jugaad? Jugaad basically is using technology, right? It's in Indian ingenuity and improvisation, which is usually done in villages, in kind of poorer communities, in the villages where there is no other life, and then people have to somehow find ways of doing it. So how do we see? Raju and his other colleagues are defining Jugaad innovation as a frugal and flexible approach to innovation. Meaning frugal, meaning doesn't cost you much money. You don't have to spend too much money on it, but you find ways of doing it. So I have some pictures for you that I want to show you, is how they're done. So I'm sure you have seen when you go in the villages, people do some very interesting stuff. And this is something that actually happens. It's a creative way of doing things in a way that it is a frugal, doesn't cost too much money. At the same time, it is very productive. It is very helpful. You'll find, for example, here, how they will take something else and connect with something else and then put those things together. And they'll say, okay, this is innovation. And in a way, you want to admire the capacity and ability of these people who are using their ingenuity without going to a college, without having an engineering degree, anything of that sort. Somehow intuitively, they're putting pieces available together and they're making it work for their own benefit. So this is an interesting example. Here you have something that we have seen many times in our villages in India, where they'll find ways of just moving along, So I think they're being smart. So anyway, but again, here you can see the innovation, the Jugaad that we can see there. Now, what I want to point out to you, another good example of Jugaad is, we see these kind of things very commonly in India, and different, especially in the rural areas, as more than we see probably in the city. But what I want to point out to you is the ingenuity, the technology. This is a techne, this is the art. How can I put those things? So when you hear the word technology, don't think of something sophisticated, something that blinks the lights and very fascinating thing. But think of technology that anything that facilitates human activity. Whether you're doing something, you have the hammer, you have the saw, and then somehow helps you to make things in a much easier way. So one of the things that human beings want to do, human beings want to simply make their life easier. I mean, we know this from our personal experiences. If we can do something without putting too much effort, why want to do it? And that's what drives us to find technology that will facilitate our human activity. For example, if I have to lift a stone, and if I have to lift a stone with my bare hand, which is very, I have to use my whole body into it, is one thing. But if I can devise a mean of some kind of a mechanical means to lift a stone without putting too much effort into it, that's what I'm going to do. And so that is called the technology. And here in our Indian context, even people who are not informed, educated, or in a traditional sense, have gone to school or anything of that sort, the intuitively, they want to do something that will facilitate their human activity. We see this very often in the agriculture. You go in the farms, you go in the fields, people are always innovative in trying to make their life easier, in trying to sow the seed there, So now, here now we kind of want to move away from Jugaad and look at the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is the impact of technology, how it changes society. Now, one of the things about human experience is that we humans we have our own endowed with intelligence, and we kind of find ways of thinking and asking questions and learning from the others and experimenting. We make experiments. We try to see what experiments works well, what experiment doesn't work well. And that has become the science. So, okay, why this experiment failed? Why this experiment did not succeeded? Other experiment did not produce the kind of result I was looking at. And all that experience becomes very essential in understanding what could be done better, what has gone wrong, why did not go wrong. So we are the ones who ask the question. If something fails, we want to know why it failed. We simply don't walk away from it. We want to learn from that mistake. We want to learn from that problem that we have developed. And that's where the science comes along, So these are essential ingredients of modern life. Not only modern life, I would say life of a human being. Every human being, regardless of the person knows to read or write, doesn't matter. They want to do that. So they transcend local boundaries, touch lives of everyone. And so this is what you begin to see. So, and here the evolution of humankind can be seen in terms of technological evolution. So you can see both technological evolution and human evolution that kind of moved along. When I say human evolution, I mean the capacity of human beings being able to do things like, for example, build houses, build high rises, build dams, build roads, all kinds of things we could not do if we did not have the technological evolution at the same time. So as I mentioned to you earlier, the invention of fire, the wheel is a very interesting example how that whole transportation changed. Somebody came up with the idea of the wheel, something round that can move. And they said, okay, now if you have something round, then what you need some flat road. So it said, okay, those wheels are working only on the flat roads. So the roads were developed as a result of that. Otherwise, before that, before the wheels, we relied only on the horses who run. And the horses, as you know, they don't need horses, camels don't need the roads, flat roads. They would go. But once the wheel came along, now what happened? What is the advantage of the wheel vis-a-vis the horse or the camel? The wheel can carry much more load and more stuff than the camel can carry or the horse can carry. So it was more advantageous for use the wheel, but the wheel required a flat road where it would move and move faster. And so you can see what we could call in business language cost benefit analysis. So there was a better benefit by using the wheel than using the horse or using the camel, because they would carry only limited load, limited material as compared to the wheel. So the wheel developed chariots, and today we have these fancy cars as a result of that idea, someone who came up with this notion of the wheel. So the wheel in a way changed the face of the humankind. You and I, we go long distances, we travel quite a bit of it. We have our bicycles, we have our motorcycles, we have our scooters, we have our cars, we have our buses, we have our trucks. Imagine that how we are moving things, which the little wheel changed the way human dynamics are taking place. So, we were, before we, human beings, up until about 15,000 years ago, we were hunter-gatherers. We were simply hunting and gathering, moving along. We were always moving. We were hunter-gatherers because what we were interested in at that time was simply by getting something to eat and survive. But once we come to know that we could use the same piece of land over and over again, and that is called agriculture, using the land, the same piece of land, we stopped being the vagabonds. We stopped being the hunter-gatherers, meaning in a literal sense, you hunt something here and you gather and you move on. It was literally being done that way. So now when the agriculture was developed, we began to learn to settle down in one place. Now we don't have to move. So we are settling down in one particular place. And that one particular place, in a way, is helping us to develop new technologies, new ways of organizing our life. And so that from agrarian society, from hunter-gatherers, we moved to the agricultural society. And from agricultural society, technology moves along and we become an industrial society, an industry. Now we have a factory. Instead of going to the field to earn a livelihood, now we are going into a factory, a warehouse. And that's where we are going to earn our livelihood. We are going to, instead of cultivating rice or some food, now we are making things, we are building things in the factory, in the industry, industrial society. What made it possible? Technology. Now, without the technology, we would not have shifted from agrarian society to industrial society. So you can see how that gets done. Now, I'm going to focus on this dimensions of how technology, or the sociology of technology, industrialization, social institutions, urbanizations, change in value system, modernization, technology and war. And I purposely put the technology and war because right now as we speak, war is going on and we are looking at how technology has played, who is going to win the war, who's going to lose the war, what kind of technology is happening there. And then of course the means of transportation and communication. We can see that at the end. I will show you a short video about the means of communication, the artificial intelligence, amplification, virtual reality, all those things that are coming along. And at the same time, technology that facilitates human activity and life becomes much easier, much better. It also creates problems. Well, the major problem is unemployment. If I had to use my body to make my physical body to make my living, and now suddenly a robot comes along, and then this robot is taking over my place, and as a result, I become jobless. I hope I'm making sense to you. So you can see that. But also another thing that technology has done is has created, from a sociological point of view, are social classes. Who has what? Who can afford to have what kind of technology? And because of technology, you can have what kind of life. So social classes have developed. So I'll talk a little bit about that later on to you. So let us talk about shift from agriculture to the industry, industrialization. So technology has contributed to the growth of industries, or we would say the process of industrialization. Today, everything has to be large scale, because the large scale, is a way of making. We introduce a system called capitalism. So, who is going to invest money? How much profit I'm going to make by investing this much money? And that's where the industrialization comes along. Says, okay, I have this factory. How I can make more money by spending less money? That is always the concern of every industrialist. We call that some fancy names for it in our field of economics. We use the word efficiency. How can I be efficient? Efficiency is, if I can put it very bluntly to you, is simply by saying, how can I make more money by spending less money? Think about that. So if I make more money by spending less money, somebody will say to me, oh, you're so efficient. You're using less and making more. I hope I'm making sense to you. So things like that kind of thing, comes along. We become very valuable. And we are constantly trying to say, how can I be efficient? It's a kind of a nice metaphor, nice euphemism that we use by simply saying, I'm spending less and I'm getting more out of it. I'm either making more money or getting more benefits out of that as a result of that. So industrialization is a term covering, in general terms, the growth of society, hitherto agrarian or modern industry, with all its circumstances and problems, socioeconomic, social life. Now, see, let me expand that a little bit. What happens here is this. We call, for example, the quality of life, the quality of living has improved because of industrialization. The other words is, we eat more, we eat probably quote unquote better, whatever that better means, but let me focus a little bit of, we eat more. I'll give you an interesting example of what happens in India. Probably you're too young to see that. When I was younger, when I was doing my research in India now, saying, what we ate. We got up in the morning and we ate our chapati, right? Chapati was our breakfast. The mother, the wife got up in the early morning and they said, okay, here we go. We have to make this chapati, and you make the chapati, you eat them very hot and warm, and then you go to work. And you take your tiffin to go to work. So, but then what happens is, the industry of breakfast, the cereal industry, they come along and they start advertising. Say, wait a minute now, you don't have to get up at 6 o'clock and 5 o'clock in the morning and make the chapatis. You're working too hard. You worked hard whole day, you need a good night rest, and you don't have to get up early in the morning. So sleep 2 hours longer. Instead of getting at 5 o'clock in the morning to make the chapati, now you can get up at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, because now you can get up and open up your refrigerator. There is something called little milk there, and you have a cereal that is packaged. You open up that, put a thing, turn your oven on, your stove on, or your microwave on, and then suddenly within 5 minutes you have your breakfast. Isn't it wonderful? He says, gee, I'm sleeping well now, but I'm eating good. That's what they said. It's all kinds of nutrients are there. So if you eat that cereal that is there, it's healthy for you. So that is the result of industrialization. That's a result of technology. So technology changed our whole life, the way that is the sociological impact on the life of the organizing principle, how getting up in the morning, early morning, making the chapati and going to your whole relationship with food, your relationship with breakfast, relationship with I'm going to have something in the morning to eat, changed completely. And think about that, how this industrialization changed our lives. And I remember following those campaigns that were coming in, so to shift people away from having chapati early morning and moving them into eating cereal, eating because now it's open the package and you have the thing, open the box, it's there. You don't have to, quote unquote, trouble yourself over the stove, over at your house, so in the morning. And then, but other big one was being presented was, you deserve to sleep. You work very hard. Instead of sleeping 6 hours a day or 5 hours a day, you can sleep now 7 hours a day. So a night, I should say. And so think about how it reorganized, technology reorganized our whole life. And I'm giving examples that are kind of almost every human being, every person, rich, poor, educated, uneducated, informed, uninformed, their lives have been affected by these kind of things. Okay, so now let us look at technology and urbanization. What has happened? Because of technology, look at our living arrangements, how we live our lives, how our life is organized. Instead of living horizontal, we build a house, two bedrooms, maybe maximum 1 floor or above the thing, 1+1 as we call it, or ground plus 1, I think that's how it's used. Now see what we are living. We are living vertically. Everything becomes very vertical. You live vertically, and in this vertical living, that's where now you are beginning to say, okay, what did I do here? So that is, and we created, there is no, the whole land has become cemented, concrete everywhere. Now you go, for example, I think a very good example for you would be looking at least I know the example, is looking at Mumbai. Mumbai, what was Mumbai? Mumbai was nothing, but it was a swamp. It's a swamp land. It was I'm sure you guys know the origin of the where even the name came from. It was known before Mumbai, it was known as a Bombay, and the Bombay came along. The name came from the Portuguese because they're the ones who were there, and they handed over that piece of land to the British as part of the dowry that was given to one of the cousins who was married to the King of Portugal or somebody like that. And that's how the British got a foothold there, because the Portuguese were there. It was called, there was nothing there. It was called Portuguese, they named it as a Boa Bahia. In Portuguese, a Boa Bahia means a good bay. So good in Portuguese is Boa, bom, bay. So out of that became Bombay, and then of course we try to be very much now away from the British or influence everything else. We call it Mumbai. So that piece of land never existed before. It was a swamp land. It's a reclaimed land. Now what we have done is, because of technology, we've been able to fill that land continuously. Fill that land, and not only that, look at how technology, how far it has gone. They're building these high rises. So people are living on the 20th floor, and the higher they live, the more money they pay to live there, and they think that, oh my goodness, we are in the best place on the face of the earth. But just imagine for a moment, there is no electricity. Very, very possible thing to happen. What happens to them? How do you go up? Can they climb? If your mother is 70 years old, and would she be able to walk up and down? What happens to them? So just see, we have been enamored. Technology says it is fantastic. We have elevators, we can go up, I can live on the 20th floor or 50th floor, whatever thing. But see, what made it possible? Technology. But look around now, how technology reorganized our living arrangements, reorganized the way we live. Places that were used for agriculture, used for farming, now they're getting filled up and being built with housing. Why? Because we say that, it gives you more money, because now you build that your piece of agriculture that you had, farm that you had, you are, instead of you are building something, and now you're making more money because you are building something 20 floors or 30 floors up. This is okay. I mean, I see that happening in my home, my state in Goa all the time. The farming land is being filled up because technology is allowing now making those arrangements to fill up the land in such a way that you can build high rises. But of course, one day will come, those buildings already happening, for example, in Panjim and all some areas in Goa, in Panaji, those buildings are going down, they're sinking, things are not happening properly the way they thought. So, but anyway, technology allowed them to say, okay, we can forget about food, cultivating food here, or the agriculture. We're going to build something here because it is much more efficient. There are more people, they have to live there, and these people are becoming very interested to live on the 20th floor to 15th floor. The higher they go, they think that they are much more richer and their life is better because they live on that tall place, high place there in the 15th or 20th floor. So just think about that. How a whole way of thinking, technology has allowed us to change our values. What do we value the most? Think about it. Why do I value living on the 15th floor of a high riser? Simply because technology made it possible, and now I'm seeing that, oh, this is much more valuable, and I'm willing to pay few crores of rupees to buy those two rooms because it is up there on the top floor. And in our own mind, we think that, oh, that's the best place, it's good, and people will think that I'm now rich. People will look at me differently. Again, the sociology, see how we are relating with the society. So the technology, in a way, is kind of helping us to understand the whole thing very, very differently. And so if you look at that, and you can see how we tend to the technology has rearranged our space, rearranged our familiar space that we had. So now, another word that technology, we like to use the word modernization. Oh, you are so old, that is in the past. Why don't you become modern? So he is so modern, she is so modern. And we're kind of enamored by this idea of being modern. This modernization becomes very important to us. So what is modernization? It's a process that indicates the adoption of the ways in which our life gets organized. Refers to an attempt on the part of the people, particularly those who are custom bound, to adapt themselves to the present time conditions, needs, styles, and ways of living. I'm sure you all have experienced this in your own little world, how in your own place where you live, we are reorganized our way of living because particular technology is making us. I'll give you a simple example. Coffee. How many of us drink coffee, or how many of you drink coffee at home now? Or how many of you really make coffee with a pot and everything else? Or we have our own little coffee makers. So think of how the coffee maker in your own house kind of changed the things and the customer. But let us take, for example, modernization. We used to walk before. Before we used to use a bullock cart to carry our stuff to the farm or wherever. And that was the best transportation mode we had. Now, we gave up our bicycles and we have our scooters. But again, that is not enough. Now we have a car. We have a car. Having a car is better than taking the bus. For whatever reason, we think that having your own little vehicle is much more important, is much more beneficial, is much more efficient. I don't know how efficient it is in a place like Mumbai or in India because of the traffic congestion that we have. But somehow we think that that kind of technology is giving us, we are modernized because I'm driving a car, even though it takes me 2 hours to get from point A to point B, which otherwise, if I walked, would have taken me half an hour, but it's taking me 2 hours. But the fact that I'm sitting in the car and behind the wheel and I'm, driving it, somehow I feel like, my life is better now. And people are looking at me in a different way, that somehow I made it. Somehow I'm now up there, the rank of the social life. See, again, the modernization. What is our notion of modernization? As being modern, we tend to look down on somebody who is still walking. For example, I'll give you one personal example. When I go to Goa, I make it my point intentionally to take the bicycle from my village to the city. My village is about 3 kilometers away from the city, from Panjim, from Panaji. So why do I need something else? 3 kilometers. How long does it take? I take the bicycle. Oftentimes, many times, my neighbors would stop me and say, "What's wrong with you? You've come from America and you are going on a bicycle?" And sometimes I remember one of my neighbors said to me, "What, you're trying to save your money?" And I said, "Do you want the money that I'm saving? I'll give it to you." And I said, "I like taking the bicycle. I like walking those 3 kilometers. It is fun. I enjoy the surroundings. I can look at the trees. I can look at the farms. I really enjoy the bicycle. I love going bicycles. 3 kilometers keeps me healthy. I don't have to go to the gym to do my exercise. The bicycle becomes my exercise. But somehow the society has looked down upon bicycle because you are not modern. Bicycle is an old technology, or the poor man's technology. So if you're still riding a bicycle, you're poor. But if you're riding a car, you made it. You are now modern, you're modernized. So think about, so our customs now have become changed accordingly. And so technology in a way facilitate our life, but at the same time see the kind of problems it has created for us as well. So the custom that we have had and the conditions, the styles, and everything else has kind of changed along the way. Now, I want to focus a little bit here now, the development of the means of transport and communication. And I spoke a little bit about transportation to you about when I talked about the bicycle, how these notions that bicycle, technology of the bicycle is a symbol of poverty, symbol of not success, symbol of you are still left behind. But the means of now somehow you have to, people will come and say to you in context, why you're still going on a bicycle? Yeah, why you still don't get a car? Why don't you get a, now in the past you say, why don't you get, in my neighborhood at least they would say, why don't you get a motorcycle, a scooter? Now, of course, nobody wants a scooter. Now they want a car. But the roads are still narrow. They're not changed because there's no space. Because the roads were built, houses were built 100 years ago, you can't demolish them. Just imagine how things work. But see how technology is a way of changing our ways of living, our ways of valuing. What do we value most? And why do we value the most? So this is the sociology of technology, how technology kind of comes along and rearranges our social arrangements, the way we interact with each other, the way we understand each other, the way we make sense of each other. See how technology becomes. If you have, for example, let us look at our devices today, our cell phones. If you don't have an iPhone or Android, something like that, you're still, what's wrong with you? Why don't you have a cell phone? Today is almost, from the communication point of view, is expected. It is a given that everybody must have that very expensive thousands of rupees worth of cell phone or iPhone or Android phone to have. If you don't have that, what happens now? You not becoming part of the group. you are left out. If you don't have the technology of communication, you are left out of the society. You are on the perimeter because you cannot be communicated with. I hope I'm making sense to you. So just think about how technology, in a way, changes the structures of our social relationships. And if you don't have certain technology, certain mode of transportation, certain mode of communication, somehow you are on the periphery. Somehow you are the margins of the society. Because you don't have those devices of transportation and those devices of communication. Think about it. And as a result, what happens? We find ways of this. We have to do this. We have to find ways of somehow making this possible for us. And so moving a little bit further, as I'm trying to look at my watch here, transformation in the economy and the evolution of new social classes. Think about it. Just look around your own surroundings and see how technology, in a way, transformed our economy. Transformed. Now, what has happened is lately, in the last few years, we talk more about computer science and the technology of the computer. Technology of computer science, computers is very sophisticated. It requires certain kind of skills. And not everybody has that capacity to do that. I mean, just in my case, for example, I was struggling in the beginning to share the screen with you. And I need to go and, so not everybody has that intuitiveness of dealing with technology. So those who do well today in that technology of computer, somehow the economic life becomes better. There is a higher value on those who do coding, those who do computer work. They become, on the economic scale, somehow they move up. But those others, let us say, for example, those who are helping the people with healthcare, nurses, or people who are taking care of the elderly people, somehow that work, because there is no technology involved, because there's just human being to human being helping out each other, somehow economically has not been valued. But if you do some kind of a computer engineering, somehow suddenly you are smart, and you are valued by the society, which is demonstrated by giving you more money, giving you high pay. Whereas if you're working with people, teaching students, young people, taking care of the elderly people on the streets, taking care at home, taking care of the children who have disabilities, which require a lot of intellectual sophistication, which requires a lot of knowledge, but it is not manifested with technology. It is just human to human. That somehow that place, the relationship has been destroyed. That somehow has not been valued. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. You see this happening. So, and then a lot of people, you say, okay, I mean, parents ask, what are you going to study? What are you going to major? Now you finish high school, what are you going to study in college? Oh, I'm going to study computer science. Oh, everybody's happy because you're going to computer science. I'm going to engineering. Then you'll say, okay, I'm going to study drawing, art, or something like that. And they'll say, I'm going to do social work. I'm going to study social work. And say, why social work? Will you make any money? What will happen? So just think about how we allocate monies or value, economic value, to who has what kind of technological information, knowledge. So think about that. And so as a result, what has happened is we have new social classes. Of course, in India, we have, of course, the caste business, which is the tragedy of our lives in India. But besides that, keep that aside. We have our own social classes. Classes of people who have iPhones, classes of the people who have cars. And not only that, I know there are certain types of cars. What kind of car are you driving? So these are technology-induced social classes we see that taking place. So what I'm pointing out to you is how technology, in a way, reorganize our society increasingly, and will continue to reorganize our society. So remember I said in the beginning to you, we moved from agricultural society to industrial society. And one of the things the industrial society did was, instead of people going to field to make a living, they said you go to the factory. Instead of working in the sun, now you work in the factory under the roof. So that was an interesting case up in the north, in one of the states up there in the northern part of India, with the Coca-Cola factory. Coca-Cola factory has been there for some time, but one of the things the Coca-Cola factory does is it eats up your water underground, because it requires a lot of water. And of course, everybody loves this, oh, Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola. But in fact, it is very resource destructive kind of product, because now you have to draw water from underground. And what happened is, this was in Rajasthan. What happened in Rajasthan is, suddenly they realized after about 15 years or 10 years of the Coca-Cola factory running there, the water, the bed for the water went down, and they could not pump their water for agricultural purposes because it was consumed by the Coca-Cola factory. So, but what did Coca-Cola do? Coca-Cola said, wait a minute now. Why you want to work in the farm, in the agriculture, under the sun, where you are going to get headache, you get burnt, your skin. Instead, they said, you come inside. There is air conditioning. You will not be under the rain or something like that. But the question comes up, wait a minute now. And everybody says, oh, why do I have to work out in the field, in the open air with the sun and everything else, with the rain, all kinds of stuff? So I'm better off working inside. So somehow working in the factory became much more prestigious job than working in the farm. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Someone who is working on the street outdoors is looked down. But someone who is working inside the factory, under the roof, suddenly is looked up. Wow, he's working from inside, he must be smart. He's working outside, he must be able to put it down. So just think about how the technology, in a way, have kind of organized the way we tend to look at. So now from the factory system came along, and this factory system kind of opened up various opportunities to understand and reorganize our life all over again, and kind of make those divisions, social classes again, And now, one of the things the pandemic has pointed out to us, this COVID-19, no matter how many factories you have producing all kinds of fancy things, at the end of the day, you really need to feed yourself, where the food is coming from. And suddenly, for all this time, because we had the money, we could buy, go to the store and buy, we thought food was just coming from the stores. We didn't think about it, where the food was coming. When the supply chain failed, got disrupted, people were going to say, wait a minute now, where is my food coming from? And this has been universal. All over the world, people have been asking, because the supply chain, we have planes, we have trucks, we have railroads, which are moving all these goods at such a fast speed that we don't even realize, we never feel anything missing. So we say, okay, but the pandemic disrupted the supply chain. Suddenly people said, we have no food. Where the food is coming from? This generation now is asking the question, where is my food coming from that I eat every day? Is it coming from my backyard? Or is it coming from 200 kilometers away from my house? Or is it coming from 1,000 kilometers away from where I live? Interestingly, one of the things that happened in Goa as a result of this pandemic, some friends of mine who are, professionals, who are a group of professionals who are architects, they got together and they said, we're going to cultivate our farms, our land, our agricultural farm that was left fallow, was not used. for many decades, for 20, 30 years, because working in the field was seen as like a low-class job, because you're working by hand. Now see how technology changed. If you work by hand, you are left behind. You are not smart. But if you work with technology, suddenly you're smart. But one of the things that pandemic pointed out, wait a minute now, we need to work with our hands because that work feeds my stomach. The technology work may give me a good, some gadgets for my house, but they don't feed my stomach. They don't feed my body. And so that awakening is taking place. Now, this is taking place all over the world, by the way. I know students, for example, in Africa, in Ghana, who are getting degrees in computer science. Where are they working? In the farm. Now they're using computerized knowledge how to do better farming. Just think about it. Now see how they're doing this. So see, technology has this capacity to put a value on something, what I value most. So we got so enamored by technology. Anyone who has a technology suddenly says, wow, you have this fancy iPhone, and therefore you must be something, because not everybody can get that. It costs a lot of money. If you can afford to buy this, that means you're something. So just you changes a perception about yourself. How others perceive you is so very differently. And then to have that perception, because we want a perception, we want to be perceived that way, we do all kinds of things to somehow acquire that particular device, that particular what we call the symbol of what it represents. A device is a symbol to send a signal to everybody else. Look, I'm here. When you buy the car, a fancy car, what are you selling? You're sending a signal to your neighbors, to everybody else. I have a lot of money. You can't go on saying, if you don't have a car, you can't go on saying, on your forehead, how much money I have in my bank. You can't do that. So how do I tell that I made money, I'm wealthy, look at me differently? By kind of things that you use, car, technologies, devices, all kinds of things. And that is a manifestation, that is a way of signaling to the world, my social class. I belong to a different social class. So you look at the whole technology of that, and you can see how. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about what is going on. I know I have to look at the time here. Technology and war. What is happening right now? I'm sure you all know in Ukraine. As we speak this evening, they're talking about throwing a biological weapon bomb or a chemical bomb. Think about that. It's a result of technology. Because we have technology today, very few people fight, but kill a lot of people. In the past, a lot of people were fighting and not that many people are getting killed because you have to use a technology of only one weapon, one sword at a time. So with the one sword, you could kill only one person. Today, one person can kill 100 people because the kind of technology we have had to develop those kind of weapons. When we drop a bomb, when the United States dropped a bomb 6 years ago in Japan, Hiroshima, in one little bomb from top, they dropped in one place, 60,000 people died, just like that. Just like that. So the technology of war is such that not too many people have to fight. Only a small group of people fight, but they will kill a lot of people. Because the weapons are such, the technology has facilitated that, okay, I can, on my side, I don't have to sacrifice too many people, but on the other side, I can kill a lot of people with the kind of weapon I use it. Jet fighters, missiles, and everything else. So the dangerous effect of technology is evident through modern mode of warfare. The weaponry has brought fears and anxieties to the humankind. We are talking about, for example, in these last few days, Russia will drop a strategic nuclear bomb. And we're talking about a strategic nuclear bomb. They're talking about a small nuclear bomb. What is the meaning of small bomb? A small bomb is the equivalent of 60 years ago, the size of the Hiroshima Nagasaki bomb they dropped in Japan. That was, today they say, oh, it's a small bomb. Only 60,000 people were killed. That's okay, not too many. So today, in fact, in fairness to people, more people get along well. More people on the face of the earth, out of 7 billion people, about 75 to 80% of the population live harmoniously. You have about 15% of the population that are always creating problems. But those 15% have the kind of weapons they have that's going to kill more people on the other side. If you look, there is a professor at Harvard University who wrote a book, very interesting book. It's called Our Better Angels. And he kind of looks at the historical perspective and points out over the years of the history, more and more people are living in a harmonious way. But you have only few groups of people who are killing more people. And so just think about it. And why? Because of the kind of weapons. So our weapons today is, we see this, for example, in the United States, a lot of guns are taking place. You have one person with a gun and kills 10 people, 20 people, only one person. Because in just 1 millisecond, it doesn't even take 30 seconds, just 15 seconds, just 50 people are killed, 100 people, the kind of weapon. So that is the result of technology. They can easily destroy the entire human race, reveal how technology could be misused. Nuclear bombs, biological bombs, chemical bombs. So the greater the technological advancement, the more risk for the humankind. Let me now forget about the technology, war technology. Look at our computers. We are so excited about computers, but computers also are a big problem because it paralyzes us when things don't work. When you just think about in a small scale, individual scale, when your computer at home does not work, what happens? Your work doesn't get done. You are exasperated. You say, you get upset, you get angry. Why is it not working? Just how much? Think of the hacking that takes place. Think of a whole internet system being hijacked by one small group of people sitting somewhere in a small cave somewhere and hacking your computers away. And to the point where, for example, now we talk about our electricity. Is electricity of the countries, every country, is it safe? Or is it, because we have more and more computerized all those things, all our lives, every activity. And the more things are computerized, the more we expose ourselves to this disaster. I mean, the big problem right now, you hear the security people talk about the safety of the electrical grid, because that can be high, that can be so much computerized that anyone can hack into it and just shut it off. It's a high probability, very high probability, not just a possibility, but it's also high probability of that. So the greater the technological advancement, the more risk for the humankind, and we kind of look at that. So again, changes in social institutions has profoundly altered our modes of life. Technology has not spared social institutions to its effects. The institution of family, for example, religion, morality, marriage, state, property, all have been altered. Technology has changed all the way we tend to organize our lives. For example, let us look at our own family, how the little television has changed the organization of the family. Instead of family coming together and talking to each other, now they don't have to talk to each other. There's a television talking to them. And maybe you'll talk to the television back, but they're not talking to each other. There is that family dynamics have shifted. So you have this television, another member of the family that has to be somehow incorporated, but unfortunately becomes very dominant member of the family in the family life, and takes a very special space in your house, the prominent space in your living room, in your wherever space. You're not putting the television set in a corner somewhere. You're giving a very prominent space. And then imagine that it's like, you know, you go to church and you have the altar in a very prominent place. So your television now is the new altar. That you go there and you turn on right away and you kind of think of that from that perspective. So the television has reorganized how family dynamics are taking place, not only in a physical way, but also in a communication way. Who talks to whom? When? Are we kind of pulled, or are we distracted by who guides our conversations? Television becomes our guide of our conversation, what we're going to talk about. So the family structures have been changed. Then everything else has been altered as a result of technology. So modern technology in taking over industry from the household has radically changed the family organization. One interesting example is how technology is, in a way it's good, but also just want to point out to you the sociology of technology. Look at our own homes. We have electric coffee maker. We have electronic dishwasher. We have electronic clothes washer. Then everything becomes, we have refrigerator. So just look at the technology in our own house, how it has reorganized our way of living. Think about it. Just go to your own place and see how technology has taken place, overtaken where you live, the way you live, and in what way the technology has reorganized your relationship with your family members. When do you talk? What do you talk about? When do you eat? When do you come together? When what attention you pay to each other? Who is the main distractor? What is the background noise that you have all the television on all the time, or some kind of music? And then just think about it, how technology has reorganized our household in so many different ways. Now, I want to show you, if you don't mind, I know that I'm looking at the time here. This is a short little video I thought will end up our conversation. I hope this works. Probably not. I don't think so. It does not look like it's a hyperactive link. Anyway, that is just not that important. This is a little video I thought would be a nice culmination for you to kind of look at and see the future of technology is coming along. Artificial intelligence, virtual reality, amplification of live reality, amplified reality, all those things are taking place. And then avatars, they're becoming more and more normal and becoming part of the mainstream of people's lives. So that's this particular young fellow who just finished his PhD in artificial intelligence in Australia, coming originally from Vietnam, kind of looks at and how he's trying to make this computer technology as part of the day-to-day life, and raises the question, what does it mean to be a human in today's world? So I want to leave you with that question. What does it mean to be human in today's world? Just think about that. So anyone? Okay, I think I'll stop here. I think sorry for the beginning initial glitch there if we didn't have enough time to do. If anybody has questions, I'll be happy to answer them for you.
Thank you for this wonderful and informative session, sir. And I'm very sorry for all the inconvenience that was caused.
Don't worry about it.
Sorry about it.
Yeah.
Okay, now we have the Q&A session. If anyone have any question, kindly post it in the chat box.
Anyone, any questions? Or you can even ask if you don't mind. I'll be happy to. Okay, I'm looking at the chat box.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Yeah. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
As of now, technology has kind of become more likely phones have kind of become like an extension to the human body.
So
Yes.
when we suddenly take that off, you constantly find a lot of psychological trauma or anxiety that is caused as a part of that. So when we suddenly take it off, or when we are trying to remove technology to be that kind of a role or play that kind of a role in our lives, how can we kind of combat that kind of a psychological impact that might cause as a result of this?
Excellent question. Excellent question. And frankly, I don't have a good answer, but I have some kind of answer for you, because it is a very complex question, and I don't pretend to answer it thoroughly, because it's a question that I think quite often. I'm asked about it many times, and it's still in my evolving process. How do we look at it? Now, if I understand your question, the way I heard you, it's like, to summarize the question is health and technology, and how technology has been beneficial to people to live life and the quality of life, not only long life, but also the quality of life. The medical technology has been very helpful to this. Now, the question comes up, there is the technology, in a way, medical technology is putting an interesting question for us. And that is, am I going to simply exist, or am I going to live life? Because medical technology allows us to prolong our lives. And the philosophical question there is existence versus living. To live life, I'm involved, I'm with it. I may not live long life, but existence is I'm breathing, but I can't do much. I need help all along the way. And everybody kind of has to need all kinds of technological help to do that. The quality of life becomes the question that kind of a little bit that draws our attention. Do I want to live a quality of life or the longevity? When I say longevity, medical technology gives me longevity in most of the times, but not necessarily the quality of life. Am I kind of putting the dilemma for you?
My question was a little different, actually.
Yeah, go ahead.
What I was trying to say was technology has kind of become like an extension of the human body.
Yes.
So especially phones. And if we are trying to kind of minimize the impact of technology in our life, we'll have to part with the phones, which so-called has become like an organ for every other human being. So when we take that away, it kind of causes a psychological trauma or that anxiety. As it's like separation anxiety, I suppose, when we take away the phone. So if we have to reduce this use of technology, this is going to create a psychological impact on us. And how do we go about combating that? That was my question.
Again, it's a very good question. The technology becomes our extension. We call bionic human beings, right?
Yes.
And these bionic human beings, how do we do this? These are new problems. I really do not have a very good answer for you. And but it is a question of worth spending time, worth discussing, worth exchanging ideas over a cup of chai, and honestly, I don't think anybody has an easy answer for that or a quick answer for that. How do we do it? This kind of dilemmas that we are facing. These are peculiar to the times, where the intersection of technology and human life. And yes. One enhances the other. At least technology enhances the human life. How do we understand that? So again, it comes down to certain values, philosophical values about what does it mean for me to live my life? What does it mean? Is it for me more important that I have a good quality life, or simply it's okay if I just breathe and exist? Each individual has to grapple with those questions. They are difficult. The difficult questions. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for asking.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Shweta, I see that you are there. It's good to see you.
Yes, Professor. I joined in a little bit late. I think I got the time wrong, but I've been there for most of the
In
talk.
fact, I had a technological blunder in the beginning. I couldn't get my share screen going. So
that happens sometimes. Yes.
yeah. So, and then afterwards, I forgot to turn the video on for about 15 minutes or so. And I realized, wait a minute, I don't see myself here. So, yeah. Good. Anybody else has any questions?
Does anyone else have any questions?
I hope it was helpful, kind of give you some ideas to think about. We cannot stay away from technology. It's part of our lives. But at the same time, I think to be a little more mindful, how do we use technology? I think that's what I would like us to take home from this conversation that I had with you. Not to use technology, but to use it mindfully. The mindfulness of that, you know.
Thank you for this wonderful session, sir, and thank you for clearing all the doubts.
I don't know if I cleared all the doubts. Please, Viva. I don't think I've cleared any doubts. Probably I gave more doubts. I don't know.
We'll be posting the feedback link of the meeting in the chat box of Zoom meeting and in the comment section of the YouTube. So I request everyone to fill out the forms if you want the e-certificate. Now I request our Vice Principal, Reverend Father Esteban Thomas CM, to give a feedback about today's webinar.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
So Dr. Basilio Monteiro, first of all, thank you very much for being part of every DePaulian's academic life. Thank you very much for your excellent presentation on the relevant and fitting topic, Jugaad in India. So now the responsibility of recapping the key points is on me. Hope I can do it with much care. Dear students, as explained by Dr. Basilio, Jugaad to a great extent is a norm of Indian society in the past and present as well. Today for students, this concept is important and it is a core lesson because tomorrow all of you are going to be marketers. Generally speaking, Jugaad comes into play in everyday life. Imagine you have a problem and there is a machine, gadget, or an item that can solve this problem and make life a lot easier. And then you begin to do a research, inquire about it, and realize that you can't afford this gadget. This is where Jugaad comes into play. You search for an alternative. To keep it short, it is an art of overcoming financial constraints by using limited sources. As rightly pointed out by Dr. Basilio Monteiro, Jugaad is a way to use flexible approach to solve problem by using limited resources in an innovative way. It is the most economical way to do a task or a particular work, mostly used in a small scale or cottage industries in India. Some of the examples of Jugaad engineering in India includes the Jugaad cycle that can generate electricity, low cost, flow created from an old bicycle, making multi-purpose ropes from old saris. So all these show that India is a nation of creativity. It runs in the veins of every Indian. So today, the technology has taken over our life. As Doctor has pointed out, we need to be mindful about using those technology. And once again, I thank Dr. Basilio Monteiro for presenting this wonderful session. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you, Father. As we have almost come to the end of the session, I request Lona Madhu of first year BA to propose the vote of thanks.
Hello everyone. It is a great honor and privilege to propose the vote of thanks for this event today. First and foremost, on behalf of DePaul College, I would like to propose an enormous amount of gratitude to our chief guest, the resource person, Dr. Basilio G Monteiro, Associate Professor, St. John's University, New York, for his great input on the Jugaad, technology, and the human explorations in sociology of technology in Indian context. It was a very insightful session and we had so much to learn from it. Thank you so much, sir. I'd now like to thank our principal, Reverend Father Baiju Anthony CM, our campus superior and financial administrator, Reverend Father Sanjay Kurian CM, and the Vice Principal, Reverend Father Esteban Thomas CM, for their constant support and encouragement. Thank you, Fathers. A special thank you to our IQAC Coordinator, Assistant Professor Joshi PJ. Thank you, sir. I extended my sincere gratitude to the organizing committee for making this webinar a very successful one. And lastly, of course, thank you to all participants from all around the world for taking the time and joining us. Once again, thank you everyone. Hope you had a great time. Thank you.
Thank you, Lona. Once again, I thank everyone for attending today's webinar. With that, we have come to the end of the webinar. Have a good day. Thank you.
Have a wonderful evening. Good day, everyone. It's wonderful. Okay.